But sometimes when they come up with the first thing that I think of is who is making these policies? I mean, who are the people? Who are the heads? Who are the brains sitting around the table deciding, bing, this is the policy we're now going to implement? Good morning.
Morning.
I know it's been a rainy like
morning. Yes,
unbelievable, like 2 weeks raining,
yes.
right?
I know. They call it sham-sham.
What's sham-sham?
9 days of straight rain, you know, that sort of thing. It's like what happens.
It's like a great flood kind of rain.
Sort of. Medyo feeling like Noah na in an ark. And how are you this morning? Wow, your waves was surprisingly accurate. 6:25.
Actually, I was a little early. I stopped by the Shell to set up all the camps.
Oh, I see.
Can you do me a favor?
Sure.
Can you waze it to Blight Residences?
Oh, alright. Okay, so we're gonna turn left on the news. So we're gonna be there in 16 minutes, according
Which
to
is, which will land us at about
6:47. So we're a little early.
Okay, maybe send a message to Dayo.
Yeah.
Let him know.
Diretso ata tayo.
Diretso ba?
Wait, teka, ano magsabi nito? Hindi na sinabing turn right on Mall
Oh, I didn't hear it.
So, diretso tayo, I think. Wait, hindi.
400 meters.
Sige.
Turn
Diretso
right
na
onto
lang.
Captain Henry Javier.
Sige. Javier.
French.
French.
Javier.
Is Dayo?
Yeah.
Dayo. The Dayo tayo.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is Debbie,
Hi,
Dayo.
Debbie.
Dayo.
Very nice to meet you.
No, my pleasure.
Yes, Dayo.
Can
Kala
you
ko Dayo. The Dayo
Dayo,
tayo
the
kay.
junior.
Okay, Dayo
I'm a junior.
The Junior.
Very
Dayo.
good.
Is that where, because we were
Yeah,
discussing, is that a real name?
In
Is it?
Batangas, that's how juniors are more
Dayo.
more informally called.
Oo, kasi
Dayo.
iba June, diba?
June, that's the more Americanized.
Yes, the more Americanized.
Some people call me June, but I'm really Dayo.
Dayo, maybe
Oh.
tell Debbie a little bit about your background, because
My background. Well, I'm a civil engineer.
civil engineer.
In terms of undergrad.
My father was a civil engineer.
Ay, talaga?
Yes, UST.
Oh. And then I did my master's and PhD in Japan, and first in urban and regional planning. I almost forgot the
Yes,
course.
okay.
On urban and regional planning, but with focus on public transport planning.
Okay. Yeah.
But, I mean, let's, since we're on EDSA, let's talk specifically more.
Oh, this is EDSA. I thought it was a parking lot.
The parking lot known as EDSA.
Okay.
Yes.
You know, throughout because EDSA is the main artery within Metro Manila, connecting
Yes.
people going north and south.
C4.
C4.
Yes.
And
Highway 54.
Highway
That's
54.
right, Highway 54. Not in
And
this school.
Yeah,
How about the studio?
Studio, yes.
Sorry,
Saan yung colored?
Sorry.
Saan yung colored
Sorry mo
bola?
edit.
Sorry. Okay.
EDSA is sort of like the bellwether. It's the pulse of traffic in this city.
Mm-hmm.
So if EDSA is doing well, then you assume everybody
It's a litmus
else is.
paper.
It's a litmus
Yeah,
test, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's also the petri dish where all these experiments are tried. You know, number coding and all of these things. And now we have this new policy coming out of the MMDA. So we have all these, and then the most recent one is banning
Picture
single
of it.
drivers
Uh-huh.
on EDSA during rush hour.
You mean unmarried?
That's what we thought.
what you said.
And so
Something like,
Jerry and I
except
said,
for
well,
me.
we're each married, so
Yeah, we're
should
exempt.
we should be bothered by that, right?
Okay.
But
I invoke
You know-
my right to privacy.
but sometimes when they come up with the first thing that I think of is who is making these policies? I mean, who are the people? Who are the heads? Who are the brains sitting around the table deciding, bing, this is the policy we're now going to implement?
Mm-hmm.
And the media reports I read said it came out of the Metro Manila Council,
Yes.
and the MMC is composed of the mayors.
The mayors of the 17.
As far as I know, none of those mayors are transport experts, but they're making transport policies. Diba? Correct me, Teo, if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I think what happened is, this is essentially the MMDA. It is part of their mandate to do traffic management for Metro Manila. And they came up with this scheme, and based on a
Scheme sounds like the right word.
but let's not talk about the adjective version of it.
Scheming.
The agency has the technical tools. It has simulation software, and in fact, in the press release of the MMDA, they did say that based on their simulation, this is what will happen if we implement this scheme. So it's a technical scheme that was presented to the mayors.
Okay.
And eventually the mayors approved the technical scheme. And using simulation, they
saw how many vehicles
yes,
would be
the
reduced,
impact.
siguro.
They could estimate the impact of this scheme based on that simulation software.
I have a question about the simulation.
Of course, it has to be. I assume they calibrated that and validated whatever models were developed by that simulation software. Yeah. Yes.
Simulation's a very dark art because there's so many variables, especially when we're talking about traffic. So if you're looking at EDSA, and what I read was that they calculated 70% or 60% of the people on EDSA.
67% of the vehicles on EDSA are
single.
private vehicles.
Are private vehicles.
Are private vehicles. And
Driven
then,
by single.
no, not just the
They
private
were saying
vehicles.
70%.
And then 70% of the 67.
Correct.
67%
Correct.
are driven
So
by
all in all, 48% of all vehicles in EDSA are driven by singles.
Right, singles.
Single and fabulous.
Yes.
Yeah, but
So by implementing this policy, you're taking 47% of the cars off of EDSA during rush hour.
around 50. That's what they say. That would be the reduction they
For
expect.
EDSA, that's fine.
Yeah.
But what happens? Did they do the simulation in terms of
For
what
the
happens?
secondary
Lilipat
roads.
yan sa iba.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Lilipat lang. Parang
It's
baha
squeezing.
yan, itutulak mo lang sa iba.
Yan, speaking of baha, yan, yung baha
Oo.
yan.
It's like squeezing a balloon. You
Correct.
squeeze
Yes.
it
That's
and
right.
it expands elsewhere.
That's
Yes.
right. The same mass remains
Yes.
Yeah.
unless you change the density of the mass.
Yeah.
So lilipat lang yan.
Yeah. So all the side streets now are going to be full, and average travel times are probably going to be the same. Is my guess. If you
Maybe not on
if you
EDSA.
not on
Maybe
EDSA,
not
but
on EDSA.
But if you
Everywhere
average it out
else.
metro
Over the
wide,
area.
Yeah.
Over the area. The
If you
metro
average
area.
it over metro wide, my feeling is it's going to be probably about the same. And
Yeah.
this is where I question the simulation.
Mhm.
Were they able to simulate across?
The network-wide or
Yes.
area-wide.
Area-wide.
They're quiet on that. Although they did say that they simulated the effect on EDSA.
You know,
But
that's
they
easy
didn't.
enough.
Although they admitted, in fairness to them, they admitted that the side roads will be congested
Yes.
because all the other displaced vehicles will just be transferred there.
Exactly.
The second question I asked when I first heard about that policy was, what happened to their HOV policy? Because about 7-8 months ago,
Yeah,
they
in
made a
December.
big deal
Yes,
about creating an HOV lane, a high
Right.
occupancy vehicle lane.
right. In
And
fact,
nothing happened to that.
that's right. It's back in December
Yes.
2017 when they considered designating high occupancy vehicle
Ooh,
lanes and
Congressman.
EDSA.
There you go. See?
Oh, VIP.
yeah.
VIP.
Can we have
We're not
those
worried.
lights
There.
and those sirens
Yeah,
and those
look
escorts?
At that, diba? See, number 8
And that's why they don't feel the traffic.
That's right. And they
yeah.
can just decide whatever they want.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you're saying-
Back in December 2017, they thought of having this HOV lanes. That's ang hirap pa ng description that is fifth lane on EDSA. Fifth, how do you call it?
Okay,
Yeah,
how
fifth
do you
lane.
count?
Fine.
Are we
And
And then they said
Japanese? Meaning
it's the innermost lanes.
The innermost lane.
yeah.
Yeah, which is what they practice in most
Oo,
countries.
innermost means yung,
Yeah.
tapos dinescribe nila yung katabi ng MRT. Oh, hindi ka na siguro malilito.
Oo, tama.
Medyo, nung umpisa nalito rin ako doon. Pero sinabi ng katabi ng MRT, innermost lane. Okay, yun. They designated those lanes, 1 or 2 lanes per direction, I'm not so sure now, as HOV, meaning minimum occupants, minimum of 2 occupants.
Yes.
Kaya lang they didn't push through with that. They canceled that.
Why?
One problem,
Why? Bakit?
according to press releases, is there's difficulty in identifying how many occupants there are
Correct.
because of the dark tint. How dark is our tint?
This is fairly dark.
Oh, okay. So they don't know we're 3 here.
Yeah, they
Yes,
know. So they won't be able to compliment us for
Correct.
following the new policy.
Yes.
So that's one reason they cited for canceling that.
If that's the reason why they canceled the HOV lane, how are they going to implement?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they have more powerful cameras now.
Apparently, there is technology where cameras can actually
high resolution.
Yeah, high resolution,
high definition.
I guess through a different wavelength of light. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. But infrared or something, it can tell thermal imaging, right? It
like
can tell
the Predator.
how many people there are.
I think it's just
Predator.
X-ray.
And the thing is, all the policymakers making these grand decisions hit so hard here on the ground. So the DOTR decides it's going to scrap the bus rapid transit here in Metro Manila.
Mm-hmm.
And with one signature or one whatever is required of a transportation secretary to say he doesn't want it, all bets are off, and all these people that we see, millions of people traveling through Metro Manila commuting, suffer because now we don't have a BRT.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that really just infuriates me.
Yeah.
And that's why I did the last episode on the BRT. I wasn't planning to do it, but you know,
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, so I felt,
go check that.
I felt that we really need to discuss this BRT because it really, from my layman's point of view, seems to be a very viable solution.
It is,
especially for here in Edsa. I mean, there will be some technical difficulties. I mean, because of flyovers and how do you, you know, move. But it's nothing that can't be overcome.
That's right.
You know, I mean, imagine if this was the BRT right here along the MRT tracks.
Yeah.
The buses would just be going and going.
That's right.
And going.
That's right.
I think it's absolutely necessary to implement that project as well if you're going to consider that you have to rehabilitate the MRT. Right?
Yeah,
because it's outdated.
That's right.
It's old.
It's beyond capacity.
It's beyond.
It's clearly
capacity.
beyond capacity.
Right?
So
Imagine if we just had this lane dedicated to BRT.
You know, I would want nothing more than to just commute.
Oh nga.
Take public transport
Right.
like we do in other countries from one place to another. You
All
don't have
of
to worry
it.
about
Multitask.
parking and maintenance.
all of us have traveled to different cities around the world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And most normally when we travel, we're not in a private vehicle. We just without question take the public transportation that's available.
That's right. And we don't get labeled poor.
Exactly.
There's dignity of travel.
This is what I liked about Dayo's talk the other week. He presented the dignity of travel.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was, you categorize people by the mode of their transportation. It's just like, you never think about it, but yes. Tell us a little bit about that.
If you take in our culture, if you take public transport, that means you cannot afford to have a car. So you're labeled poor, or you're labeled not rich, or you're labeled cannot afford.
Yes.
So I think that's the lack of dignity of travel there. I define it as not being judged based on the by people based on the transport choices you make. It means not having to run for your life when you cross the street. Imagine a mother carrying a baby.
No, I've seen it. We've
Running
seen it
for
too
their
often.
lives
Yeah.
crossing the street.
God,
Or waiting on the third lane.
Yes.
Kung saan ka man mag-start mag-count left or right. Waiting for a bus with their baby.
Yes.
Or ibababa ng driver sa gitna ng EDSA. Or on Commonwealth, which I always see. And they will run for their lives.
The
That's not dignity of travel.
That is
really.
I mean, I did an episode on the MRT where I traveled from my house to here.
I saw that one. Yeah.
And it is dehumanizing.
It is.
Yes.
To have to travel that way, to have to commute that way.
It is.
You know, and again, you know, there's this rage inside of me that why the policymakers can't get it. That something like a BRT or other solutions to mass transport need to really be put in place.
And you know what makes it heartbreaking? Because in Japan, during peak hour, trains are awful.
Yes,
packed like sardines.
True.
Right, they have men with white gloves who push you into the trains.
Right. In the morning, it's white gloves.
White.
At the end of the day, it's soil.
Yes, correct. Okay.
People don't complain there. Pero bakit dito? Why is it heartbreaking here to see such situations here? Because it doesn't have to be that way. There are other options.
Yes.
So why don't we take those other options and improve life? And if, as a result, gain dignity of travel. That is what's heartbreaking. It does not have to be that way.
That is, you're right. It is heartbreaking.
Dapat talaga i-compel lahat ng mga public officials. They really should be compelled to take public transport for 1 month.
I actually reached.
1 month.
I actually reached out to the staff of a public official who shall not be named because we don't want to put pressure on that person. I invited that person to take a bus trip with me from Fairview to Makati
Okay.
Yes.
and to experience it firsthand,
Yes.
Yeah.
what it's like. Because until you do that, until you're
Yes.
under these conditions,
Correct.
Mhm.
on a Monday morning, raining,
Yes,
everything,
exactly.
with the crowd during rush hour, experience it for yourself, and you realize, as Dayo calls it, how
Dignity.
the indignity
Yeah.
of traveling, of commuting
Yes.
through this.
I agree.
That's right.
And you're right, Dayo, people just being deposited in the middle of the road,
Yeah.
scurrying, trying to avoid
Yeah,
being hit with their
really.
child, with their
Correct.
groceries, with whatever they're carrying,
Uh-oh.
with maybe a toddler in their arms or whatever.
Yeah.
Dayo,
Mm.
in all your years of experience, in all your years of studying and seeing the practical
Konti lang naman.
situation,
Hindi man masyadong madami.
in the brief years that you've been studying these problems, especially in the Philippine context,
Uh-huh.
if you were in a position to recommend key solutions or things to be unblocked or released,
Mhm.
what would you recommend in terms of how do we find our way through all of this to really find ourselves in a better situation as far as transport is concerned,
Okay.
road safety, traffic?
Mhm.
What would be the key blockages that we need to unblock?
First, the quick wins. The low-hanging fruits.
Yes.
There are plans for high-quality public transport systems
Okay.
for the metro. I believe that public transport or mass transit plays a very important role, not just in solving traffic congestion, because our focus should not be solving traffic congestion. Our focus is providing people with good mobility,
I love
with
it.
high
See, asking
quality
the right
mobility.
questions.
Yes, are we asking the right questions? Are we trying to answer the right questions?
Exactly.
start with
That
that.
was our premise. That was our very,
Right.
very
It should be
premise.
mobility of
Mobility,
people,
agree.
not really traffic congestion. Because if it's traffic congestion, then we're talking about vehicles,
Yeah.
Yes.
mainly private cars, because they're inefficient. They occupy a lot of space, and they're a big contributor to traffic congestion.
Correct.
Not just them, but they are a big contributor. Anyway, I would look at the projects that are just awaiting implementation, because they're low-hanging fruits. They're just waiting for the push button
Right.
to turn them on, to trigger them to implementation.
Yeah. So
Um,
we talk about things like the BRT.
Yes, like the BRT, for example, the provincial bus terminals.
Yes.
They have to be completed soon.
Yes.
In the longer term, one is recognizing that land use and transport should be integrated.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
One is making sure that in zoning ordinances of LGUs, high density development should only be allowed at places within walking distance from a high quality transport hub.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yes.
So we covered a lot of ground, maybe
Yeah.
not in the car,
Not
but
kilometers.
Not
in
physically.
terms of our discussion. So
Correct.
thanks guys, thanks for joining me this
Thank
morning.
you. Thank you. Looking forward to breakfast.
Where do we have breakfast?